Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started? And what do they do to stay there, to stay in that leadership lane? And oh my goodness, here we are, season 4. Can you believe it? We're in 2023 and we are coming out with a great guest. Her name is Jeri George. She is the Chief Human Resources Officer at AVANCE in San Antonio. She's also an adjunct professor at Trinity University and serves Texas SHRM. And Jeri, I'm so excited to have you on the show. How you doing?
Thank you, Bruce. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. I've listened to your podcast and I'm honored to be joining you today.
Well, I'm honored to have you. You know, I've had you on my list to get you on for a long time. You know, we met in Texas SHRM. And so I know you, but there's probably some things I don't know about you. And I always enjoy learning more about my guests. And I know you're doing some exciting things that the listeners are going to get to hear about today. I would love for you, as we get started, just to share a brief highlight for those who don't know who AVANCE is. How do you serve your customers?
So AVANCE, we're actually early Head Start and Head Start childcare facilities. We have 31 facilities across 5 Texas counties. Every day it's about serving others for us. So I'm truly in a servant leadership role. It's about breaking a cycle of generational poverty where we focus on the children, but we also focus on opportunities for the parents. And it's just the mission and vision is something that I think it's very easy to get behind. It's meaningful and rewarding. And so AVANCE is just a great place, not only to work, but to live.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. I love it when anyone uses the word serving and mission and vision, and it just feels good. I would love to kick this off learning more about you, Jeri. I would love to hear the Jeri George story. Like, where did you grow up? I know you're in San Antonio now, but where did you grow up and how in the world did you get into HR and leadership?
Well, I had kind of an unusual, I guess, route into HR, but I'll start off with I was born in Texas, but I had the privilege of growing up on the beautiful Guadalupe River, nestled deep in the heart of the Texas Hill Country. So I grew up tubing and swimming and fishing with my parents and just enjoying the outdoors. I always saw myself staying there because it's just such a peaceful place to be. I ended up going, of course, to college for my undergraduate, and I was like so many young kids. I had no idea, what am I going to do with my life? And as it would be, an HEB corporate recruiter brought a team out to our university as I was getting ready to graduate. And I actually got recruited into the School of Retail Leadership through HEB, where I spent the first 5 years of my career. And what I learned from there was my takeaway was I loved growing other employees, and I love doing the training and development aspect. So fast forward 5 years from my college graduation, and by then I was a mother and I had a family. My life was changing, and I decided to go into education at that point. I took what I learned that I loved from HEB, which was a phenomenal place to work as my first really full-time job. Great foundation in terms of education and training that company provides for their partners. And so I went into education and I was in the classroom for 3 years as a secondary educator. And I realized I was having a great impact on my students, but I could do much more. So I went into graduate school, receiving my credentials, went into administration with the school districts. And from there, I was moved into human resources. And that's where I really just was like, this is where I was supposed to be. It just took me a little while to figure out where I needed to be, but ultimately I got there because I followed what I love doing, and I sought my certifications and education along the way to make that dream happen.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there. I loved when you said I followed what I love doing. I got to tell you, I'm right there with you. I was going to college. I remember not knowing what I was going to do. I just wanted to get my degree and get out and experience the world. By the way, that Guadalupe River, I've never been on that.
Oh my gosh, it's really, really pretty up in the Texas Hill Country. The water in some areas is like 40 feet deep, and you can see straight down the bottom. You can see the fish and the turtles and everything. It is just gorgeous. So I miss it every day. So there's a lot of times we have to go back up there for quick weekends and stuff just to kind of get a respite and get out of the city.
I love that. The listeners, I guarantee they're thinking, okay, we've got to make sure we make that a trip to the Guadalupe. Okay, so I love the story of your journey. I love how and it's amazing how people and in this case a recruiter or the company came into your life and recruited you for HEB, and that was your first training ground. And I would love for you to just kind of stop there just for a second. I mean, you are in this role. You're out of college and you're working for this great company and you experience this training and development. I would love for you to just share, like, what do you think it was though that it just like energized you to see other people grow?
It really is at the core of that, what you just said in your question to me is energizing me by seeing others grow. I found that I naturally had a knack at it. I can be a very empathetic leader. And so I could put
Mm,
myself in their place. I could understand where their challenges were, what was holding them back from being successful. I
mm,
could really step back and assess what are their needs. And one of the things, so I'll use this example, Bruce, is so when I was an educator in the high school field, I was also a coach and I was teaching a girls basketball team. And I hadn't played basketball myself in high school, but I had played other sports. And so I thought, I'm going to take this under my wing. But because I had not actually played the sport, I was a bit unconventional. I would sit back and watch the girls and where their pain points were. And then I created drills and I created other practice things that would help them focus on those weak points to make them points of strength. And so the other coaches would look at me like I was crazy because I had them doing all this crazy stuff they'd never seen before. But at the end of the day, it made them successful. And man, when they got out there on the court and they walked out there with confidence,
mm,
and it didn't matter if the crowd was singing their praises or booing them, they walked out there with their heads held high because they knew they were better, that they had
mm,
accomplished something. And seeing that confidence,
mm.
wow, like helping somebody else find their groove, that was it. That was like the icing on the cake for me. I'm in touch with a lot of those kids and those girls. I mean, they're adults now, they've graduated from college, they're having families, but that connection and helping them grow, it's just phenomenal. I can't explain how much it meant to me to watch them excel and achieve.
I got to tell you, I can like feel it coming through the screen as I'm talking to you, how that makes you feel. That is fantastic. And I love how you use the word empathetic leadership. And I think that is a big, big word. I know that in the SHRM National Conference, Johnny C. Taylor Jr. talked about empathy and being one of the most important traits that we can have as a leader is empathy. Hey, well, let me ask you this. And by the way, this is what I love about the show. Like who would have known you were a girls basketball coach? That is fantastic. I want to ask you though about here you are. You're a CHRO. You also are an adjunct professor. You're doing some great things. But you didn't start there, right? You had,
Right.
along your journey, you probably had some people that have helped you get to where you are. I would love it if you would just share maybe a couple of people that have helped you that we call them mentors, people, and maybe something they did that might have helped you along the way.
To be honest with you, I didn't have any like formally assigned mentors as you will.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did is I actively sought out strong, ethical, professional people to associate
Mm,
with. And then I would volunteer for projects, work on committees with them so that I could learn one hands-on, but also vicariously. I wanted
mm,
to learn by watching other great people. And that approach really served me well because I learned a lot of what to do and what not to do.
mm,
I did have several professional colleagues that, I really looked up to, including two employment law attorneys that I worked with previous employers. And there were things that they said that just really resonated with me over the years. They probably didn't even realize that they were having that great an impact on me, but it was profound. I really learned by listening and watching just all the great people around me. One of the people that I really still look up to this day, and we're true colleagues. Her name is Christy Bunch. I believe she's one of the chief officers at one of the school districts here around the San Antonio area right now. but we served as directors together. And actually, it was my first HR director role, and she was a director over in training and development. So we worked very closely together. But the positivity that she exuded on a day-to-day basis was just wow. Like when I had a hard day, all I had to do was look out and see her across the hallway, and she would bring a smile to my face. She was just one of those people that saw the silver lining in everything, that you could count on for that hug. You could count on for that positive word. Such an uplifting person. I've actually brought her back to some of the organizations that I work at now to do some coaching and training and to do some motivational sessions. She's really a great lady. And there's lots of people in my life that have been great. I've been blessed to have many great colleagues and leaders.
I got to tell you, I'm smiling just from you talking about Christy. Like I can feel the positivity. That is absolutely fantastic. And I love how you said I even bring her back to sometimes speak because you know how she could help people. That's fantastic. Well, let me ask you this. I know that you talked earlier about, working at HEB early on, about the mission and the vision and the purpose-driven company. I always like to ask about purpose, and here you are, you started HEB, you went to education, here you are today. Was there a moment when you found your lane? I mean, you talked earlier about, hey, this is what I want to do. Once you became in that education side, what was it though, where you're like, oh my gosh, I found my lane and this is where I'm going to go the rest of my career?
I was serving as the president of the local San Antonio SHRM chapter, which is San Antonio HR Management Association, before I was fortunate enough to roll into Texas SHRM. And so while I was the chapter president, though, there's lots of mixers and events that you attend. And so I remember one evening I was at a mixer and I was going around talking to everybody, meeting everyone, welcoming those that I knew. And there was this one young woman, and she just looked at me and she was like, oh my gosh, she was like, you were such an inspiration to me. She was like, I want to be like you. Like you're doing such great things. And she was talking about being a role model. And I was stunned. Like I was the one used to looking up to other people and them being my role models. And it was not about ego or anything like that in that moment. It was terrifying because I realized I have such responsibility on my shoulders now, that people were watching me. And that was huge. And it was very humbling. I realized at that point that I was a leader in people's eyes, and that I had, whether good or bad, the ability to impact them. And my whole focus at that point was changing lives for the better. I have to make sure that everything I do, knowing that people are watching me every day, is something that I would be proud to tell my family about, and something that I want other leaders to pick up and learn. So that was the day I really found my leadership lane, but it was terrifying and humbling all at the same time.
I have chills. Like you just sharing that story. I could picture myself being at that mixer and watching that all play out. And we really never know how much we impact people. It's absolutely amazing. And then if you're listening right now, you need to get out your pen, you need to get out your journal. And there's so much here. The part you said though, you said, I want my leadership. I want it to be something I'm proud to be able to go home and tell my family. Like that means something. That's when you really, really care about how you present yourself in your organization as well as in the community.
Well, and Bruce, I'll add to that. Like my daughter is in college now, and she's studying business and psychology, looking to be a professional, and I am her role model. She tells me that. And so I realize I'm setting the example for my own child to go out into the world who's going to impact others. That is just enormous for me. And I started her out in an early age. She's actually been to some of my speaking engagements. She's been to some of the SHRM events and stuff because I wanted her to be surrounded by great people like I was. I wanted to give her the best launching pad I could. But being my daughter's role model is one of the greatest gifts and biggest responsibilities I could have ever imagined would happen. I never imagined that when she was born, and here I am today. But I know now, finding that leadership lane and that aha moment at that mixer, I was like, I'm not just some person that can slip through the grocery
Mm,
store unnoticed, and how often do we actually look around and notice the people around us? And so that made me realize I need to look around a little harder too. There's a lot of great people around us we don't see every day.
I love that. That is fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. I want to continue this conversation. I want to talk leadership. Here we are, 2023. I do like to ask my guests whenever I have them on the show, if someone were to say, "Hey, Jeri, what's leadership to you?" How would you respond to that?
I'd say leadership is really about taking professional risk and challenging the status quo.
Mm,
For me, I have to set my personal bar very high. That's just who I am. But more so, I have to be able to motivate the teams around me to do better and achieve more, whether it's for themselves personally or it's for a business entity. So it's just, again, for me, I have to set that bar high. And I sometimes have to challenge the status quo.
that, and by the way, that's not easy. And
Oh,
leadership sometimes is very hard, but it's very rewarding, right?
right.
And I love how you said sometimes, I have to challenge the status quo. I want to just, I would love to stop there just for a second. I mean, like, how do you do that? Like, you talked about, leading with empathy. I love how you've shaped this conversation around that. But challenging the status quo, sometimes that's hard because many times we have people in our organization that take things personal.
Yes.
How do you do that?
It is hard, but really relying on emotional intelligence. My current employer, my executive director, she told me something that resonated with me early on, and I've been with the organization now for almost 5 years.
Okay.
And I'm always one of those people. I always have a plan B, plan C, plan D. I'm always planning ahead. And she looked at me one day and she said, "I would hate to be in your head." It was one of the greatest compliments though, because what she was really saying was, is my brain is always working. I'm always figuring out how are people going to respond? What's going to happen? What direction could this go? And then I kind of had these plans laid out in my mind. And I think when I'm challenging the status quo, that serves me well because I'm able to pivot quickly. I can articulate how I think an employee is going to respond or how a situation is going to play out. I'm not always right, but because I'm always in anticipation of what may happen, I can gauge the way I tackle things, the way I say things, the way I structure it. And what I've learned in my professional career is not everybody has that knack. I think
Mm,
that's something that was a true gift to me that I'm just able to do. I use that accompanied with my ability to build strong relationships with others.
mm,
Being able to challenge the status quo means I have to have trust. People
mm.
have to trust that I'm ethical. People have to trust that I'm fair, that I'm consistent, that I know what I'm doing, that I'm an expert in my field. And so challenging the status quo up front is not always easy. Sometimes it takes time to
Mhm.
build the relationships so that you have the platform and the trust to be able to challenge it then. So it's very multi-layered, I think.
I love everything about this conversation, and I love how you talked about how you anticipate because you hear the great quotes. I love quotes, and I love how Wayne Gretzky talked about how he doesn't skate to the puck; he skates to where the puck's going to be. You said something earlier that really got my attention. And you talked about when you're talking about mentors, you were talking about how you would look for people that were ethical. You want to be surrounded by great people. And I'm right there with you. And
Right.
then just now you talked about trust. And I want to get into just real quick. And I noticed on LinkedIn, one of the areas of responsibility that you have is you're ensuring that you have ethical practices and policy alignment. And I was wondering if you could just share for the listeners. I'm also giving a presentation around, leadership road signs around ethics. Now, I would love it if you could just share maybe a couple of, I don't know, share some road signs when a company is having success
Right.
with their practice, or maybe even maybe they're having a challenge. Any thoughts around that?
there's lots of, I think, telling signs when a company is in trouble, red flags, if you will. So I think there's several of them. And I would say first and foremost, and one of the easiest ones to recognize is low employee morale. If the employees aren't happy at work, that's usually the first sign. But there's other things like lack of communication. And when I say lack of communication, I don't just mean that there's not any communication, but I mean in particular that there's a fear of asking questions. Are your policies keeping people stressed out? Are they not allowing your employees to be creative? Are they causing fear? Are people scared to take risk because of the policies? And then probably a couple other things would be like if you see cliques or groups forming within teams or departments, and there's a lack of inclusion. And then I think one of the other big things that oftentimes will go unnoticed is if your middle managers don't have any authority. They're just kind of more as figureheads, meaning they're not taking care of anything. They're not growing their people, and there's nobody really looking out for the employees. Those, I think, are when I have gone into an organization, when I used to be an HR consultant for a while as well, whenever I would be brought in to do some internal audits and so forth from an HR perspective, those are some of the things that I would look for. And a lot of people will think if those things aren't present, then our company is doing great. We're on the right track. And the company may be on the right track, but it's every leader's responsibility to stay in touch and in tune with the employees and the organization. The leaders have to be vigilant all the time, because at any point in time, something like that could flip. And I use the example from my classroom days, even into my HR days. You know, things could be humming along and great, but you bring that new student in the class, or you bring that new employee into the group, and all of a sudden everything's chaos. Everybody's running around and acting crazy. And so it just takes one person to be a disruptor, and they can be a positive disruptor or a negative disruptor. And so leaders have to be vigilant. What's changing in the company and the organization with its people, and constantly look for some of those red flags to stay ahead and keep the company on the right track.
Those are all great road signs. I love that. And I know the listeners are going to get a lot out of this. I do want to ask you though, you mentioned one thing that you mentioned was giving middle managers authority. And I know a lot of times we struggle with that because of the word you used earlier, and that is trust.
Yes.
Do we trust them? Just real quick, just share. I talked about in my book, Life in the Leadership Lane, about developing influence in the workplace starts with trust. How do you teach or develop that trust with middle managers, or how do you have conversations around that? Any thoughts around that?
Anytime I have joined an organization in the past, I usually start off with some type of training. I'll do like HR lunch and learns, things of that nature, where I'll speak to a topic where I've kind of identified there's a struggle. And so I'll bring them in, and I tell them flat out, nothing's being recorded. There's no notes being taken. And I tell them my motto is, it's not I gotcha, it's I'll get you there. That's always been my motto. They can ask any questions. Those meetings, those HR lunch and learns are considered a safe space. They can ask me any questions so long as they don't violate anybody's confidentiality or trust, because it's all managers together with me and usually a couple of my other HR team members. But they can ask us anything they want. They can request private sidebars with us if they need to talk more in detail about specific employees or issues that they're having or that they see. But I tell them I will never, ever be upset for them asking a question, asking for help, seeking guidance. It's when somebody does something wrong and then hides it, and then it manifests and it boils up, and then 6 months down the road, we have this huge problem. We have employees filing complaints. That's when the accountability gets serious for them. But I build trust by telling them it's not an I gotcha, it's I'll get you there. We are partners. I am here for you to support you. As long as we are in agreement, we're going to be ethical and we're going to do what's right just because it's the right thing to do. And so it takes a while. You don't get that trust right away. You don't get that respect right away. It takes months and years to grow that trust in the managers. And I am very proud. I have a lot of managers now. They have my personal cell phone number. They'll call me. They're like, okay, I got to run this by you before I do this. I want to make sure I'm thinking right. So now it's not I'm the HR person enforcing accountability. I'm their partner,
Mm,
helping them work through company problems to make sure that everything is done right, the employees are treated fairly. They can sleep at night knowing they made a good decision, that they're handling it right, and they know they have my support. So it's all about relationship building. And
mm,
man, that is so hard, but it
mm.
is so worth it.
I love that relationship building, and it's because it takes effort and takes time. But I got to tell you, when someone has your cell phone and they make a call to you first, you've done something right there. You've
Yeah.
built that relationship. They trust you to have that conversation, and I love that. I think there's going to be a lot of takeaways from this. People that are listening today, going, you know what? Maybe I need to take one of these things that Jeri has shared and apply that to build that influence in the workplace. Hey, well, let me ask you this. You also I mentioned as the show started, you also serve as an adjunct professor at Trinity University. You do that part time. Talk a little bit about that, and what I would love for you to share about that is, and we know your passion for education and teaching. That is fantastic. How has it helped you? Like that takes extra time, right? That you have a full time job now. You're doing this part time. Why would you do? Why do you continue to do that? Number one, but number two, how has it helped you in the workplace?
Well, so I am actually entering my fifth year as an adjunct professor. So I teach talent acquisition and development courses to BBA and HRM majors in Trinity School of Business.
Okay.
All of my students are junior and senior level. Most of them are seniors getting ready to graduate soon. And man, it just fills my cup. It's being able to hopefully transfer some of my acquired professional knowledge and skills to our future business leaders and entrepreneurs is is very rewarding. The students are phenomenal. And not to knock textbooks, but textbooks can be very one-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I really work to ensure that my curriculum is multidimensional. My lectures, my projects, activities, and hands-on materials that I provide them are things that I do to give them real life simulations, to give them a real life insight into HR situations that they might encounter. I try to instill in them a sense of integrity and compassion and accountability. Every one of those students, I look at them as if they could be my boss someday.
Mm.
How would I want my boss to treat me? And I try really hard to transfer that type of compassion to them with the background in business that they need to be successful. And for me, I mean, I love it. Yes, it is extra work, but every day in my actual HR role, I learn something new from people, and that makes me stronger. And that also ties into my students because I can refresh and update that curriculum to change with the changing times. COVID has flipped us upside down. So my curriculum has even changed since then because I've got to pivot and adjust to the new work world that we find ourselves in to make sure that they're prepared. And a lot of those students also keep in touch with me after they graduate. I'm their reference for some of their professional endeavors going forward now. And I love seeing when they get that first job, when they get their first promotion, when they're really exceeding and excelling. I don't know, there's just something in me. It's about fulfilling a purpose,
Mm.
giving somebody something else around me to carry on well past the time that I'm gone.
Mm.
Impact the idea that I'm impacting future generations, that I'm impacting future businesses and companies. One of the things I tell the students is, hey, when you get to the top, don't forget to send the elevator back down for others.
Mm.
Pay it forward. And not everyone is as blessed and as fortunate to, get that credential or get that degree or have that opportunity through their networks to move up. For the some people's trajectory in their careers is faster than others, and don't forget about the other people that need a leg up too.
Oh my goodness. This is fantastic. I got to tell you, that's funny because yes, you're right. One of those students could be your boss before
Yes.
long. Every time I look around the workplace, all of the seems like leaders are getting younger and younger and younger. Uh,
Yes.
but but I love how you use the word. Like I didn't hear the word, hey, I'm going to teach them how to make this call to go and recruit this person, which you probably do. You talked about integrity. You talked about compassion. You talked about accountability, and those are the key things, the key traits. And if people can learn those, oh my goodness, that
Yes.
is absolutely, you know what, something else I was thinking about, and let me ask you this real quick. You talk about this is what fills your cup. You're helping all these other people. But when you go out and you do something else that aligns with your work, in this
Mhm.
case, adjunct professor, you're also developing you. Right. You're
Yes.
learning to be a better communicator.
Yes.
You're continuing to talk to people, and then you take that back to the workplace as well.
Yes. And I'm always floored. The students are phenomenal. And the students today are so much more savvy than I remember being at their age. And I don't know if it's just because they're digital natives, they have access to more information and faster information. But wow, some of the questions they ask and things that they're curious about in class, it's scary and inspiring. It's like,
Mm,
wow, I was not even thinking about that stuff at
mm,
your age, thinking about the business world and what they see going on in the economy right now. Just even some of them asking, well, should I try to enter the workforce right now or should I go on to graduate school? Like
mm.
they're trying to navigate, what's going to give them the best opportunity of success. And I'm thinking, and I didn't even know what I wanted to do till HEB showed up at the college campus. It's just, it's crazy how the generations are so different, but it makes me excited because they're very inquisitive. Makes me very excited for what the next generation will bring into the workforce.
I love how you also shared how you're there to help them grow, but they're also helping you grow because
Yes.
they're asking these questions. They're showing you things from a different lens. And I absolutely love that. You also, I mentioned on the show, you also serve Texas SHRM.
Uh-huh.
You're a former president for, we call it SARMA, San
Yes.
Antonio HR Management Association. Shout out to everyone in San Antonio.
Yes.
But you also serve Texas SHRM as the certification director, and I've had the opportunity to serve with you. I've had a front row seat. I've watched you help different people that different professionals. I know we had a young lady reach out from one of the chapters and was needing some help certifying a program. And
Yes.
you just jumped right in there. Talk a little bit about the importance of volunteer leadership for you. I mean, here you are, you're a full-time job. Now you also adjunct professor. And then you said, hey, why not Texas SHRM? Talk about the importance of that.
Yes, Texas SHRM has added to my own growth as well. It's expanded my reach in terms of connecting with other professionals in my field and learning from others, even like you, Bruce, watching your podcast, watching you at a lot of the events and your comments in our meetings and stuff. I'm learning from you just like I'm learning from everyone else. It's a great way for me to continue my path in terms of growth. What I really love from Texas SHRM though is being able to assist others. Like, yes, I recall the one person that you're talking about that needed some help. I can't understand why this isn't getting certified for credits for the sessions we're going to offer. And yeah, it was like, okay, how do we communicate this better to the professionals on the receiving end to get what they need out of this? And so being able to assist the chapter leaders, and in particular, this past 2 years with the help with Latanya, her and I have been co-directors for several years now, and it's been an honor to serve with her. She's also a great professional, and I believe she did a podcast with you as well too. We put together the Texas SHRM study groups. The first year was free because it was a pilot. The second year, this past year, we've charged like a nominal fee, but it was to help people that hadn't been successful on their first certification test for SHRM and to help them better prepare for their second attempt on the SHRM test. And that was a great experience. Again, I go back to servant leadership. That's something that's just innate in me. So joining Texas SHRM, being a servant leader with other HR professionals has really continued to fill my cup. But on the flip side of that, anytime we volunteer, think about the people that we're helping
Mm.
exponentially. As we're helping them, what are they doing? They're turning around and helping others. The HR love just gets perpetuated throughout the nation, throughout our state, throughout wherever you live in whatever community. And so for me, it's always about, you can't pay it forward until you start it. I feel like as servant leaders, especially with Texas SHRM, we're starting and we're helping facilitate that volunteer mindset. And I have to give a shout out to Wendy. She called me this morning before this podcast. I actually was one of the recipients for the SHRM Foundation raffle prize. So we all donated and bought tickets. A lot of people did these last couple of months. And Wendy called me about 15 minutes before today and said, "Oh my gosh, Jeri, your name was drawn at random." And so she was so excited. So I have to give a shout out to the SHRM Foundation, who supports our HR professionals through scholarships and training and growth and development. Knowing that as a Texas SHRM member, I'm supporting the SHRM Foundation too, and paying it forward in ways I don't even see is just such a great honor.
How inspiring. Wendy Chance, who is has led our foundation for many years, and now she's going to be a Texas SHRM district director,
Yes.
which I'm so excited to work with her. And definitely a shout out, LaTonya McElroy. I mean, come on, Texarkana.
Yeah.
She's an author. She does it all, and she's been instrumental. I know you both have worked together and done great things. I love all that you shared. Hey, I do want to ask for the listeners who are thinking about getting certified, or maybe there's a practitioner that is trying to make a decision. And I've been asked this question before. Now, I'm curious your thoughts around this. If someone is certified, do they have more of a weight as a candidate in getting that job? What are your thoughts around like that? You have two candidates, one is not certified, one certified. I would love for you to share your thoughts around that.
Yeah, for sure. Certifications are really important, I think, in today's market and economy. I encourage my students and my employees to always add certifications to complement their work experience and their education. I think having those credentials, it shows a commitment to superior professionalism, first off, that you're an individual who upholds industry standards, that you're committed to continued learning. It adds and boosts their credibility and their prestige. It makes achieving their goals, their career and financial goals, a lot more, I guess, for lack of a better word to put it, easier. If I'm looking at a candidate that has, maybe an HRM degree versus a candidate that has an HRM degree and a SHRM certification, I'm probably going to lean towards that SHRM certification because that shows all those things I just mentioned. It just adds a whole nother level of prestige and commitment to how they're perceived.
And I know at the end of the day, it depends, right? It depends on a lot of different things. I mean, experience certainly weighs. There's a lot of factors that weigh. But when you're saying when all things are equal, that person that's certified, they show a little that commitment. And I love how you shared that. Hey, I want to ask you one question before I pivot here. You're driven. I'm just I'm so inspired by just this conversation. What drives you every day to continue to do what you do?
I don't know. I'm not one to sit idle. I stay busy. I have to stay busy. Now, that's not to say that I don't get tired. Yes, I get tired. And, sometimes I'm like a freight train and all of a sudden I run out of steam and I have to crash for a little while. I have to pull into that train station and rejuvenate and take a break. Those things happen to me just like everyone else. I run the risk of burnout too, just like everyone else. The way I counterbalance that potential for burnout, though, is I find those things that are going to motivate me. For whatever reason, it's just something inside of me. I can't stand to see something wrong. I can't stand to see something unethical. It hurts me to my very core when somebody's not treated fairly or a situation's not handled ethically. And I cannot describe it. I'm one of those people, like, we have to get in there and we have to fix this. We have to do this training. We have to take action. We have to hold people accountable because I don't know. I've always gravitated towards that underdog, if you will. Like, not that I'm going to carry them, but that I'm going to build them up so that they're no longer the underdog. And I'm going to kind of push that dog pile back to give them the ability to stand back up on their own two legs and be strong and confident. It's something in me. It probably drives my family nuts. I can't sit still. But, at the end of the day, I'm just like everyone else. I have to step back and have a rest and take a break. But when I leave this world, I want to know that I did something good in it, that somebody was impacted positively by something that I did. Otherwise, what was my whole purpose? Why did
Mm.
I waste all my time and energy if something good didn't come out of it? And I just can't sit back. It's just not me.
I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh. And I can see all the great things you're doing and all the things you're going to do, all the things ahead. I can even see that. I have vision here, Jeri. No pressure. Hey, let me ask you this. We're going to shift over to it's time to accelerate, but I do want to ask one quick question here. You've given incredible, like I have a full page of notes here. You've given some incredible advice, but I do like to ask my guests before I shift to the next section, if there's some advice that they were given maybe early on or maybe during their career that it's just so good. You just find yourself sharing that often.
I would say probably that things are never going to be easy,
Mm-hmm.
that we're always going to feel sometimes like we're stuck in these circles. Maybe our career is not advancing the way we want it to, or not
Mm-hmm.
fast enough, or, something's just making us feel stuck, and that's okay. And it's okay to feel frustrated,
Mm.
that everything happens in due time. And, you know, I myself have had a lot of setbacks in my life. Not everything has been easy. And while I've had some great people in my life and great role models, I've also had some not so great ones. People that I felt like held me back, or, gave me a reason to question why I was, in HR, or why I was doing what I was doing. And you can't get frustrated or set back by those people. You have to continue to put one step in front of the other and continue to, as you talked about it in your book, Bruce, if you have an opportunity for growth to get that certification, go for it. And that's what you have to do. That's the only thing that's going to break that cycle and break that feeling of being stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you feel stuck, find a way to take a step forward, and eventually you'll become unstuck, and your dreams and your purpose and things like that will start to unfold in front of you. So don't get frustrated. Just find another way around it.
Yeah, that's fantastic because I think there's a lot there's probably somebody listening right now that's stuck and they're like, you know what, I needed to hear that. And I always share that, for me, it's always about many times when I don't have something to look forward to, I get stuck. For some
Yes.
reason, I'm just stuck. So therefore I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I need to write down a couple of goals or a couple of things I want to try to do and start moving towards that to help me get unstuck. So that's incredible advice. And I love that. I told you before we started, Jeri, I said the time is going to fly by,
Yes, it has.
and it absolutely has. I got a few questions as we move to it's time to accelerate. And the first question I do like to ask my guests is, would you rather read a book or listen to a podcast? And do you have a favorite?
I'm a lifelong learner, so I'll take whatever I can get, whether it's books or podcasts, articles. I'm a sponge when it comes to information and
Mm,
learning from others. So it doesn't matter to me in what form it comes through, as long as there's a good, strong message for me to latch onto and take with me. I've obviously your life in the leadership lane, Bruce, has been a great inspiration to me. I'll share with you on this. My husband and I were traveling. We had a long car ride, and I was actually reading your book out loud to him. So, so my
oh
husband
no.
read your book too, but he
Thank you.
liked a lot of the sports analogies that really, connected
Yeah.
him to your words. And he's a sales professional. He's in a big management role as well, and so he was learning from you and taking those words. Atomic Habits, if you're familiar with
Mm,
James Clear, he talks about how tiny changes can have
mm.
remarkable results. And then, of course, I'm a Brene Brown fan. I saw her at the SHRM conference before the pandemic. She was just as inspiring, if not more, in person as she is on a lot of her series and documentaries that she's put out with her Call to Courage. And then I don't know if you've read it, Bruce, but Extreme Leadership. It's how U.S. Navy SEALs lead and win. For people that have a military background or military families, that it's like, wow. He talks about how leaders should never be satisfied,
Mm.
and that, of course, connected with my heart. How I should never be satisfied where I'm at, always working forward. So I like books, podcasts, articles, anything that just has a strong positive message.
Oh my goodness, I'm energized. I love that. And by the way, for those of you listening, I'm speaking with Jeri, and she's got this background of her dream bookcase, and there are millions of books in here. So I believe that. Thank you for the kind words on my book. I absolutely love that. Extreme Ownership. What I loved about that book was that they would talk about things that were going over during war, during our in Iraq, and then
Yeah.
they would relate that to the business world. And it's so good.
Hmm.
It's so good. Atomic Habits. We just got through reading that in our climb group, and that's absolutely fantastic too. I love that. I heard the Heisman Trophy winner this weekend talk about um,
Yeah.
habits. He said you can change your habits or you can change your dreams.
Yes.
He said he wasn't going to change his dreams, so he started changing his habits. So that's fantastic. I love that. Hey, here
Yeah.
we are going into the new year. We just finished the holidays. What are you grateful for, Jeri?
I mean, first and foremost, my faith and my purpose. Of course, my family, even my coworkers. I'm so very grateful for them,
Mm,
and for everyone that has not only supported me, but that has been really tough on me. I'm grateful for all of it because I think all the goodness and beauty that I have inside of me has come from a combination of those things,
mm.
and I have to give credit to all those around me. I wouldn't be who I am without the support that I've had.
That's fantastic. I'm grateful for you coming on to the show today. Hey, I do like to ask this question. You like to learn, you like to teach,
Yeah.
you lead, you serve in Texas. You do all these things. But
Yeah.
outside of all that, what energizes you? What do you like to do outside the workplace?
I like to do things that I guess create growth phases for me. So whether it's trying something new,
Hmm.
traveling somewhere I've never been, anything new is what energizes me. So for example, whenever my husband and I travel, I don't we'll do some of the, the extra excursions that you can do
Hmm.
and so forth, but those are kind of pre-planned for tourists, right?
Hmm.
I'm one of those people that likes to go off the beaten path. I want to see what's the culture like? How do the locals live? I want to see and learn and grow from different perspectives. And so that's not just true in my workplace, but in my personal life. Anytime I have the opportunity to try something new, I mean, I've been skydiving, been parasailing, jet skiing, like I try all these different things. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I'm actually very risk adverse, but there are times where I've kind of looked at my husband and I'm like, we got to live. We got to try something new. And so it's like a mental and physical break from the stressors that are there at work in our everyday lives. Just because I love what I do doesn't mean I'm not stressed. Um, but something new,
I
bringing
love that.
something into my life.
Okay, I'm not risk averse. Skydiving. Are you kidding me? I have never been skydiving. I'd like to do that one day. I think. I don't know. I'm scared of heights,
I
but I do
am
like to
too.
experience things new. It's awesome.
I'm scared of heights too, but sometimes it's about tackling our fears, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I did it tandem. I was with an Air Force, a former Air Force individual, and he was phenomenal. We packed our own chute. I watched him do it. He was great. He was with me every step of the way. And even though I didn't really know him well, I had trust in him. He was a member
Mm,
of our military. He was retired. He was, the way he conducted himself with confidence and
mm.
knowledge gave I gave him my trust with my life essentially. And it was so worth it. I look back and I think, gosh, I was crazy for doing it, but what an adventure it was.
I love that. Well, you know what? You walk the talk. You were talking about giving trust, and here you are giving them trust with your life. Hey, final question. One of my favorite questions, Jeri. Jeri, 10 years older, is around the corner. She's knocking at your door, and you're going to go answer that door. What's she going to tell you?
What a ride it was.
Mm,
You never know how much time we have in life. I mean, whether it's a few hours, a few days, or maybe, a couple of decades more.
mm,
And I think what I would tell myself is just no regrets, the negatives, the positives, the mistakes you make, wherever you feel you got stuck, don't have any regrets. Just always try to do that right thing. And at the end of the day, things are going to shake out the way they should. I think it's about living life to our best ability and never forgetting who we are and loving the people around us that we can love.
That's a wise 10 years older Jeri George. I'm so thankful and grateful and inspired to have you on the show today. Hey, for someone who heard something that you shared and would love to learn more or just follow you, what's the best way for someone to connect?
Probably through LinkedIn would be the easiest way to connect. My screen name appears as Jeri G. So easiest way to find me, if you search Jeri G, I'll pop up. You'll see SHRO and Trinity Adjunct Professor on my title bar. And I would love to connect with people.
Perfect. And I'll put a link in the show notes so that way listening to the show, just click on the link and you can connect with Jeri and learn more about her and all the exciting things that she is doing in the HR community and the world. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your wisdom, your perspective. I've learned a lot from this conversation, and I know everyone listening will learn too. So for that, I say thank you. And thank you so much for your friendship.
Thank you for having me, Bruce. It's always such an honor to get to chat with you. I really appreciate being here today.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, Happy New Year. I'll talk to you later.